There you go, thank you. Welcome everybody, welcome councillors, welcome staff to our 19th of March Ordinary Council meeting. Oh, you're right, Councillor Gorman has just turned up.
Apologies.
It's all right. So in the opening, I'd like to say that in accordance with Weddin Shire Council's Code of Meeting Practice, this meeting will be recorded for the purposes of audio-visual live streaming via Council's website and Council's YouTube channel. Those in attendance are asked to refrain from making any defamatory statements and comply with all relevant Weddin Shire Council codes, policies and procedures at all times. Weddin Shire Council would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land we meet on. Weddin Shire Council would like to pay our respects to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri Nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginals who are present or watching today. Weddin Shire Council would also like to honour our service personnel who have sacrificed their lives in the defence of our freedom, our peace and our prosperity. We acknowledge all our frontline workers, our volunteers who every day provide our essential and our non-essential services, especially those within our Weddin Shire local government area. Thank you. You put that in, but you don't need to read the Next we move on to attendances and applications for leave. We have no applications for leave. We have everyone attended today. Councillor White's on apology, no leaves of absence or leave of absence applications. So we'll just move the seconder for that one, please. Councillor Rolls, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Neal. All those in favour, please. Thank you, councillors. All those against? Thank you, so moved. Next we move on to 5, the confirmation of the previous minutes, that the minutes of the Ordinary Council meeting held on the 19th of February 2026 be taken as read and confirmed. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Macon, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Rolls, thank you. Very good, councillors. No discussion on the minutes? No. So we'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendation, councillors, the minutes be confirmed. Thank you. All those against? Thank you, councillors. Next, I'll ask our General Manager for any disclosures of interest. Nil today, thank you. Move on to 7, mayoral minutes and reports. There's none of those. Next, we move on to question 8, questions with notice. Acting Director of Corporate Services, the author and General Manager. Just want to speak to this one, General Manager?
Yes, I can speak to that one. Thank you.
So there's a recommendation that the responses to the questions regarding the draft CCT policy raised by councillors Wes Macon and the Mayor himself on the 9th of February 2026 Ordinary Council meeting be received and noted. A move and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Gorman, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Neal, thank you. I'll just ask the GM to present those, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a 180-day retention period because that's what the storage of council's infrastructure allows, our computer infrastructure. There's no standard policy, no standard period in regards to retention. So we retain sections of footage relevant to specific incidents, investigations or insurance claims. The purpose of the retention of the footage is for public safety and not for individual access to that footage, although police and insurance companies can obtain access to that footage if they do so require.
Good, thank you. Now I'll put that one there to vote. We note that report, please. Thank you, councillors. Yeah, all those against? Thank you, councillors. Next, we'll move on to 9.1, the organisational structural review. This is presented by the General Manager. There's a recommendation that Council approves a budget variation of $30,000 to engage consultants for an organisational structure review to commence in the 2025-2026 financial year. We have a move and a seconder, please. Yep, moved by Councillor Parlett, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Macon, thank you. Councillor Niven?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment that the WEA report be included in the brief for the consultants.
Do we have a seconder for that amendment? Seconded by Councillor Parlett. So you're going to speak to that, Councillor Niven?
Yes. It got blocked. The WEA report got blocked from council but I've obtained a part of the WEA report through Freedom of Information, and I find it quite concerning. I've got the level of risk of the psychosocial analysis. Like it comes up with excessive, what's causing the problems, are excessive or high job demands, bullying behaviour, like there's quite a few problems, but I think that what got blacked out would be of more interest to the consultants trying to go out, like the root causes and things like that. So I just think it would be an operational matter. It would not be by councillors. I think it would be a handy document for the consultants.
Yep. Thank you. Councillor Niven spoke for it, for an amendment. Anyone to speak against the amendment? No, councillors. I'll speak against the amendment then if no one... Oh, Councillor Macon, yes?
Instead of, so as to, through you, Ms Mayor, per Councillor Niven's amendment, would it be going against legal advice to share a private and confidential document to external consultants when it is under the Privacy and Confidentiality Act to share a fully open document that we've been provided legal advice not to share it in full, so therefore putting us in more litigation stage once again? That's my issue. If they want to see the redacted one, which we all had access to, that's what we've been given legal advice on, but the full report was redacted for a reason due to legal advice. Therefore, if the consultants would like to see it, they should only be seeing the redacted one.
Speaker, Councillor Parlett, you want to speak?
I think that it's probably a good thing to have this available, and of course, if there's any concern regarding legalities, they can sign, as you all did, to the confidentiality agreement. I think it's important, especially with Eric and with our staff, if there's any risk things that need to be addressed, I think it's important that we do this in any work that we are doing. I think it's important, especially for our staff, that they have the best working environment.
No one else wants to speak on it? No? I'll speak against it. I believe that has nothing to do with the structural systems in place within our council. We're talking about a structural review. We're talking about how people, what jobs are available, what people's delegations are. I don't believe that to be anything to do with the WEA report, which is on psychosocial stuff. I don't believe whatsoever that it has any relevance to this whatsoever. This is an organisational review. Basically, I just find it completely ridiculous to actually to include this into something which has nothing to do with it. Yeah, that's about all. No, that's all I want to say about it. I really don't think it's pointless. Any other comments, councillors? No. So I'll put the amendment to the vote. So we have the amendment to the actual motion. So now the amendment be put. So Councillor Niven's amendment is that we too provide the WEA report to the consultants. Is that the right amendment, councillors?
Yeah.
Yep.
It provides the WEA report to the consultant.
Yep. Yep. That's the amendment.
Yeah, that's the amendment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are
So-
you going to say the redacted
No,
WEA report?
no, that's the amendment, councillors. We spoke on it. I'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand. 2. All those against the amendment, please. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The amendment's been lost. We now go back to the original motion. The council approves the budget variation of $30,000 to engage consultants for the organisational structure review to commence in the 2025 financial year. I just ask the General Manager to speak on this one, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The reason I initiated this report is upon commencing at Weddin Shire Council, I had a look at the organisational structure chart and noticed some deficiencies in that chart. A couple of those deficiencies were what they call span of control. So that's the number of direct reports that you have to a position. I've noticed one position that had probably 3 times the recommended number of direct reports. I think that's a very untenable position to have. I've noticed also that there's positions in the structure that are not funded, so you shouldn't have any position in your org chart that is not funded by council. Also reporting lines that were not reflecting what was happening on the ground. So the main of reasons is to get strategic alignment between the position descriptions and the strategic objectives in the community strategic plan that council has adopted, and also to establish clear decision-making accountabilities across council. And to give also a independent view of the best alignment of tasks into positions and reporting lines within the organisation. We could do it in-house, but that's not necessarily an objective view, and it would also add to the workload of staff at the moment, which would further delay the salary structure review, which we've already engaged consultants for.
Comments, councillors? No? Councillor Macon?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just the one thing that I was not concerned about, but wanted to bring to attention, is that obviously $30,000 is a lot of money, but what are the sort of outlook, KPI, success criteria, what are we looking at in terms of when this is all done and they've done recommendations on what we need to do, and how are we going to know if this restructure is successful? If that makes sense.
Sure, yes to me.
I'll break that one.
So the outcomes of it will be revised position descriptions and reporting lines. One would expect to see that we're achieving, there's an improvement in the KPIs that have been set through the delivery program, that they are being achieved within the time frame to the level that's been specified in the delivery program. It's also going to address the alignment of resources to the right functions in council, provide role clarity as well. So there's going to be some outcomes that aren't so easy to measure. Improve morale. Hopefully some of the metrics we might see is that the churn, so that should reduce, and there'll be improved retention rates with staff over time. So yeah, there'll be some outcomes that'll be easy to measure, and there'll be others that are a bit more intangible.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do you see this 30,000 investment would be a saving in the future for the council, having that more direct sort of resourcing, more direct, like basically stronger workability within council?
That's going to be a hard question, because honestly, yeah, you would hope so, but we don't really know what the result's going to be. The results could be we actually are understaffed in some areas and overstaffed in others. So it could completely change the dynamic of what we're doing. But you'd hope that we do. But we're already a pretty lean organisation, aren't we? You know, we're already cut down to the bone. But having clear and concise job descriptions will be a really good thing. As the general manager is saying, we probably do have a bit of an issue where some of the job descriptions aren't. Need some tidying up and some fixing. So.
No, thank you.
So, Councillor Parlett?
I see this as a very good investment and long overdue, because if we can improve our staff retention, someone outside, I think, will have an independent and more objective viewpoint. They will see things that we can't see inside. If we were able to see them, we'd be doing them. So we need that outside look and fine-tuning so that we're more efficient. We streamline things. That will increase productivity, I hope, and make it, a better work environment, because people will not be doubling up on things, or, you know, clarity for everyone, I think is really important. So I see this as really important and a great investment, and long term I think it'll be dividends coming back to us.
That's both. I totally agree on the independence, because I think you only, as you said, you only understand where you've been. So, for instance, our general managers only worked in so many jobs. The consultants will have worked in multiple organisations and understand multiple organisational structures more than what anyone internally can sort of do. That's why the
But also
independence is.
decreasing the workload through Mr. Mayor of the stuff that already here, but stretched, let alone dumping this on top of them as well.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions, comments, councillors? No, before we put this one to the vote? No? Very good. The recommendation is there that council approves a budget variation of $30,000 to engage consultants for an organisational structure review to commence in the 2025-26 financial year. All those in favour, councillors? Aye. Thank you. All those against? Thank you. General Manager. We next move on to policy review. 9.2. There's a recommendation here that council approves the following policies currently on the Weddin Shire Council's website to be removed from the website, as they are inward-facing and organisational policies and are therefore operational in nature, and are not required to be approved by councillors, but instead are required to be approved by the General Manager. A, there's the personal protective equipment uniform policy. B, sun protection policy. C, corporate uniforms and dress. D, policy for injury management and work to return to work. E, training and development. F, recruitment and attraction. G, policy for equal employment opportunity. H, policy for salary systems. And I, well, there's a few more, policy for resolution of grievances. J, policy for private use of motor vehicles. K, policy for loss of driver's licence. L, work health and safety policy. And M, alcohol and other drug policy. 2, we approve the following policies currently on the current website to be rescinded as policies and removed from the website, as they are procedural in nature and should be classified as such, and therefore are operational matters and are not required to be approved by councillors, but instead are required to be approved by the General Manager, which is A, the purchase and replacement of motor vehicle policy, and B, opening tenders and quotations policy. And 3, council approves the procedures for the alcohol and other drugs to be removed from the Weddin Shire Council's website policy, as it is a procedure. Right, we have a move and a second for this one, councillor. Yes, moved by Councillor Niven and seconded by Councillor Parlett. Thank you. I didn't know, did you ask the General Manager to speak on this, or just ask you had questions?
Through Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to talk to it. So this is based on my experience at a previous council. The policies mentioned are administrative in nature, so they're internally focused. They don't have any strategic impact. So I believe the appropriate place for approval of them is to rest with the General Manager, because they're operational, and it'll also remove a very cluttered website page to do with policies, and there's some policies in there, as I've mentioned in the recommendation, that are really more procedural in manner. So this is part of my tidying up of Weddin Shire Council's policies going forward. We've actually got that as a recurrent item at our executive leadership team, and in order to remove all those policies, I'll actually be bringing in new policies that I've identified that are missing as well. So whilst the list might reduce in the short term and this is improved, it will expand later on with the introduction of new policies.
So the policies still exist, they just won't be on the website?
Correct.
And they're available to staff and councillors through a different portal?
They'll be available to staff if this is approved through SharePoint, which is an intranet system, along with procedures.
So will there be any input from councillors? There's no need for input?
No need for input from councillors because they're operational in nature.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, councillors, comments? Councillor Macon?
I just have through you, Mr. Mayor, for the the recruitment and attraction policy and the policy of equal opportunity, is there a section of the website for careers or recruitment that they should stay there so prospective employees can read them?
I don't think so, no.
That would come up.
There's jobs section of the website, so they could be placed on that page.
All the other ones I see that are inward and they have no need to be there.
Yeah.
But the recruitment sort of directed ones, recruitment attraction and equal opportunity, equal employment opportunity, I should say, could be in the jobs section there. So when someone is applying,
It's
might be there. But if it's not worth it,
It's very prevalent. That's in every time we have a job description out there. It's all in the job
in there.
description.
Yeah. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's not just about where it sits, where it sits on an external
Yeah.
facing page or internally. It's also about the process of approval.
Yeah.
More importantly. So,
No,
I'd argue, yeah.
beautiful.
Councillor Parlett?
Oh, yes. No, I just think that it's a really good thing. I wondered why we're actually addressing these being operational issues. I think, again, cleaning up the website is an important thing. Again, it's streamlining everything, and I think that's what we need to be doing going forward.
Parlett? Any other questions, councillors? No? The only one I probably have is that some of them are to do with work health and safety, and I think it is a responsibility of the councils for the councils have an oversight of work health and safety, but I think it's reported in a different manner, isn't it? Like with
Work health and safety policy will go through the Work Health and Safety Committee.
Right.
That's a staff committee.
Yeah, you know what I mean, though, like we have a responsibility for
You
the
do.
work health and safety matters of our staff, and basically as a governing body, that's an overarching responsibility of councils to make sure that we're monitoring the work health and safety.
Yes, and that'll also be reported through the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee as well.
Yeah, so there are other ways in place.
Correct.
Yeah, that's all. So there's no more questions, Madam Councillors, then I'll put that one, all those, I won't read them out again. We'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour of those recommendations, councillors? Thank you. All those against? Thank you, councillors. So moved. On to 9.3, the National General Assembly. This is once again the General Manager has put this one forward, that recommending that one, the councils encourage attendance of all councillors to the 2026 Australian Local Government Association Conference in the 23rd to 25th of June 2026. And two, the councillors are to affirm their attendance by the 2nd of April 2026 to the General Manager. Moving a second for this one, councillors. Yes, Councillor Gorman and Councillor Montgomery. That one. Thank you very much. You trying to speak to this, or no need? Is there any questions of this one, councillors? No questions, comments on that one? Or Councillor Parlett?
Sorry.
That's right. No, sorry. That's what you do.
No, I'm just going to say the same comment that I said last time this came up as a topic, because I really think it's important we all have equal opportunity to go to these events and conferences, because they are a good thing to go to, network and learn. But I do see that sending everyone is a big cost, and then that limits our opportunities for any education or things like that, or other alternatives in our financial year, if we put all our resources into that. My suggestion last time was that because we are elected for a 4-year term, that over the 4-year term, that everybody gets an opportunity to go at some stage. Even if we send 4 representatives, we're still sending, our mayor, our deputy mayor, 2 other councillors. And if we stagger that over the 4 years, then we're not using all our resources that way. And we've got resources then to be doing other things as well, or attending other functions. That's just my thoughts. Not against it, just saying that, different options.
Councillor Gorman?
Personally, I was very grateful that I went last year, and it was a big learning curve, and I found out a whole lot of information on how local councils work and the operations beyond our council, and I thought it was invaluable, and personally I would love to go again, but I can see the point in that sharing around might also be part of the process, in fairness.
questions, councillors, comments? I suppose my question to the director then, or the general manager, but it comes out of everyone's training budget, so which is renewed every June. Correct. Yeah. So July. July, which is renewed every July. So it's all sort of factored in that each individual council, if they spend their training budget on this, don't have it to spend on something else. I suppose it's in some ways it's a decision every council needs to make, is whether or not they're going to spend their training budget on going to the conference or not. So that's all. But I understand your point, Councillor Paley. I was just saying that's something. So, any more comments? You didn't want to know amendments or anything like that, Councillor Paley? No.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, by the 2nd of April, we'll know how many's going anyway. For me, with a new little one at home, I probably don't see me being away for 4 nights. So that's probably one down already. People have the option to, but don't need to go. Yep. That's
no worries. Okay, then we'll put that one. Then, if no more comments, councillors, I'll put that recommendation to the vote. The council encourages the attendance, and councillors to affirm their attendance by the 2nd of April 2026. All those in favour, please, councillors. Thank you. All those against? It's unanimous. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Next, we move on to 9.4, support for the Rural Health Action Plan. The recommendations of this are the council approves being included as a signatory on an open letter from Dr. Joe McGurr MP to the Minister for Regional Health, Honourable Ryan Park MP, regarding support for the Better Care Close to Home Alliance Rural Health Action Plan. 2, approves the issuance of a media release supporting the Rural Health Action Plan. And 3, approves the posting of a social media tile, explaining the Rural Health Action Plan on Council's Facebook page. Move and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Parlett, seconded by Councillor Montgomery. Thank you very much. Once again, I'll ask the General Manager if you'd like to speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason I've put this report into tonight's meeting is that myself, Councillor Montgomery and Councillor Councillor Gorman attended a webinar a couple of weeks back in relation to the Rural Health Action Plan, and then subsequent to that webinar, yourself, Mr. Mayor, myself, Councillor Parlett and Councillor Gorman attended the Policy Health Lab meeting in Orange, at which Dr. Joe McGurr provided another presentation on the Rural Health Action Plan. I think it's of critical importance for the Shire because of the advocacy actions that we've got underway in regards to the multi-purpose health service, and also in our attempts to secure a second GP for the region. And it's also, I've been nominated as one of the GMs under the JO, representing councils in the JO for the health and ageing portfolio. So I thought it would be appropriate of me to present this report to council. And I think it's a measure of a low-cost advocacy path that we can go to secure another GP and improve our overall health services facilities in the Shire.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Comments on it?
Just want to say thank you for including this and pushing this forward, and for everyone for supporting it. It's another move to push for the MPS and our doctors, so thank you, everyone.
I like his plan. I like the 6-stage plan. The only thing probably about it is he says a doctor for every, what's a commitment for a doctor for every community. I sort of in some ways would feel like the doctor should be related to numbers in the community as well, because saying just having one doctor I think is limiting. For instance, for example, you could definitely have 2 doctors. So the plans only suggest but I mean that's but there are plenty of other towns which don't have a doctor, don't have anybody. So I totally agree that every community should have one. It'd be just nice if we had 2 or 3. That's all. So, so I'll put that one to the vote then, council. If there's no more comments on it, it's a good idea. Great plan. No? All those in favour of those recommendations, councillors? Thank you. All those against? Thank you. Next, we move on to 9.5, the outstanding actions items resolution. The council notes the updates on the actions items of the resolution register as of the 11th of March 2026. I'll move in a second, councillors. Moved by Councillor Gorman, second by Councillor Macon. I won't ask the general manager to speak on that, but unless anybody's got any items in there they wish to discuss. No? Thought the only one I'd mention was that probably the letter for the Patent Wheels Register. I don't know whether it's, I think Councillor Gorman and myself, maybe we should get together and write that letter and take it off the staff.
I think it's it's an operational.
Operational, okay, that's right.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Okay, no worries, that's all right. I thought that's okay.
I appreciate the offer.
I was just thought Councillor Gorman.
I haven't shared with you yet because I've been spending a few days teaching, but I did get a letter from my initial approaches by Stephanie Cook, and remember I said this council, as a council, advocating as well, was a suggested follow-up to me from way back then, but I have since got a letter, and I don't think, sadly, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. It seems to be regarded as a big privacy issue, and a lot of people, particularly with the AI, etc., in society, are worried about their information getting out there and maybe not remaining confidential, and that was one of the reasons, and there were 2 or 3 others which I'm sorry I can't remember offhand. So we can have a talk about it later, and I'd like to share that with both of you if you don't mind, and if the council wants to hear the response I can bring it to the next meeting if you want to do that. But it appears we need to lay it to rest, so to speak.
Thank you, Councillor. Thanks, sir.
Which is disappointing,
Well,
but
we might have to see that or something in a notice motion or something like that. So
Maybe a rescission.
a rescission motion or something like that. But yeah.
or
Let's go.
next meeting.
Yep.
Yep.
We'll look at that. No worries. Thank you, Councillor. Next we move on. Oh, do we have to vote on that one? So there was no discussion on that one. If anyone on the resolution register, councillors, nothing else to discuss. Put those that the resolution be noted. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you, councillors. Next we move on to corporate services report, which is our rates and charges collected as per the February 2026 recommendation that council notes information contained in this report provides an update on the rates and collections charges for the month of February 2026. Move in a seconder, please, councillors. Moved by Councillor Roll, seconded by Councillor Montgomery. Thank you very much. Once again, I don't think we'll need to speak on this one unless anyone's got any particular questions on this or comments. No? No? I think my comment will be it's a terrific result. I think things are getting pretty tight for people, and the collection's coming along really, really well. 70% up to that date is exceptional. It's less than previous years, actually. It's outstanding. So,
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to express our appreciation to the finance staff for the efforts that they've exerted to achieve that result. It's a very good result considering the cost of living pressures.
Yep. Everything's good. There's a lot more pressure on people, and I'll say this every time the rates and collection comes up. If people have issues, please see the staff straight away. Don't wait till the issue becomes a big issue. See the staff as early as possible and have that discussion with them. So that's all. Thank you very much. I'll put that report, the recommendations the council notes to report. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. All those against? Thank you. Next we move on to 10.2, the statement of bank balances and investment balances as of 28th of February. General Manager, as we don't have a Director of Corporate here today anymore.
An acting
director, unless, but who's to speak on this one?
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to.
You're happy to speak on this one?
Yeah.
So the recommendation that council notes information in a report of our statements of bank balances and investment balances reports as of the 28th of February. Or moved by Councillor Montgomery, seconded by Councillor Macon. Thank you. Do you want to speak on it, or does it? Well, probably see if any councillors any questions or comments regarding this report. No, there's probably no need. If everyone seems to be pretty happy with the report. I think we've had a fair few accounts come to maturity in the early on March, but I'm assuming they've already been rolled over to especially with interest rates going up, we want to roll them over as quickly as we can and get them back into the highest fund we can. So, yeah, very good. Any comments, councillors? All good? All right, I'll put that recommendation to the vote, that we note that report. All those in favour? And all those against? Thank you, councillors. To 10.3 is an interesting one, the draft artificial intelligence governance policy. And there's the recommendations that council approves the draft artificial intelligence governance policy being placed on public exhibition for a period of 28 days, inviting submissions from staff and the public. 2, request that the General Manager presents a further report to Council with all submissions received at the conclusion of the public exhibition period for Council's further considerations and adoption of the policy, or if no submissions are received during the exhibition period, Council formally adopts a policy without any changes as a policy. Very good. We have a move and a second for these ones, Councillor. Moved by Councillor Macon and seconded by Councillor Montgomery. I think we might have a bit of discussion on this one, so I'll ask the General Manager is going to speak to this one. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you for that. Obviously, AI is becoming increasingly prevalent both on a private level and within business as well. It's got the ability to bring in great productivity improvements within businesses, but it's obviously got to be handled in a fairly sensitive way. As the policy talks about, there's prohibited use and permitted use. Prohibited use includes things that are confidential or sensitive in nature, so no documents should be uploaded into AI applications that are of that nature. It also speaks about in the policy tools listed in the council approved AI technology register. So currently council's assessing for risk Microsoft Copilot as our preferred AI tool. Once that's been assessed as a low risk tool, that'll be included on the register. There's obviously a multitude of other AI tools out there, such as ChatGPT, Gemini for Google as well. They'll be assessed over due course. Yeah, so it's like any tool that's using information, just got to be very careful in the way that it's used. It should be referenced if you're using AI in any reporting as well, like you do with a university report, university assignment, where if you're using a journal, you'd reference that journal. The same should be done also with using AI.
Yeah. Will they be looking into using like paid AI providers where they give us higher levels of security?
Through Mr. Mann, no, not at this stage. That hasn't been discussed.
You pay more for the tiers and you get certain levels of heightened security and fencing where your information is only held in a certain area and not open to use for other people.
No, we haven't discussed that. The policy
It's more about
is more centred on generative AI and hasn't touched on agentic AI. Agentic AI, sorry, using all these technical terms, agentic AI is basically where you're telling the AI to go and conduct actions for you. So you might say, I want to travel to Sydney, book flights for me or tell me which petrol stations to go into and book accommodation for me, and the AI will actually go in and take, as it says, as an agent, you'll go and take that action on your behalf. So this policy at this point is focused on generative AI, not agentic AI.
it's something, I like to comment is I think it's something we do have to, as a small organisation, you can't ignore it, you've got to embrace it because it's going to make savings, within the organisation itself, isn't it? Like I said, we're understaffed if you can use AI to perform some mundane tasks and things, but like you said, but it's important to have a policy in place and a real understanding, in-depth understanding of where your information or whatever you're putting in there, where it's going. So
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a lot of the uptake in the local government sector at the moment is in relation to the use of chatbots with 24/7 customer service applications. So there's potential for Weddin there to save staff time in using that sort of technology. Again, being very putting the guardrails there as to how it's used and what information is put in there.
Good, thank you. Any comments, questions, councillors? No? It's pretty straightforward. Obviously, I'm assuming that once it comes back, staff will be sort of trained in it, and that may
Correct.
extend to councillors.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you're correct, that's part of the policy that training is rolled out, acknowledgement that they've read and understood the policy, all those sort of governance processes once it's adopted.
Thank you. There's no more comments then, councillors. I'll put that one, those two recommendations there up to the vote. All those in favour of those recommendations? Thank you. Anyone against? Thank you, councillors. Thank you, General Manager. Next we move on to 10.4, which is a community support application for NAIDOC Week initiatives in 2026 for the Counci kids. The recommendation is the council notes a report, and 2, that council provides a $450 donation to Counci kids for the NAIDOC Week initiatives. We'll move in a seconder. Councillor Gorman and Councillor Rolls, seconded by. Thank you. Once again, I probably won't ask anyone to speak on this unless any questions. It's pretty straightforward. Councillors, any questions or comments regarding this?
I think it's a very
Councillor Gorman? Very good program. The only thing I noticed, they didn't tick the box of whether or not they were a non-for-profit, but I'm assuming they're not-for-profit.
Yes, it is.
Through you,
That was all.
is it a question?
No, I'll make the assumption that they're a non-profit, because they just didn't take it on the application. I thought, oh, I wonder are they not? But that's right, I'm sure they are. All right, so any more comments, councillors? If not, I'll just put those 2 recommendations to the vote. Councillors, all those in favour of those recommendations, the $450 donation, thank you. All those against? Thank you, councillors. We move on to 11, the Infrastructure Services Report. Our Director of Infrastructure Services. We have the report here. Sorry. Oh, sorry. My apologies. I do have a late report. I did have it written there. Don't know whether that 10.6. Oh, 10.5. Sorry. Yeah. Move to accept the late report. So we have a move and a second that we accept the late report. Moved by Councillor Rolls and seconded by Councillor Montgomery. All those in favour of accepting a late report, councillors? All those against? Thank you, councillors. I don't have it on mine, or do I have it here? Yes. Right. Due to time constraints, I think we're looking at the council notes information in the report, and 2, that the Mayor receives a request in writing signed by at least 2 councillors by no earlier than 11th of June 2026 for an extraordinary council meeting to be held on the 25th of June 2026 for the purpose of adopting the 2026 and 2027 operational plan and the 2026-27 long-term financial plan to the 2035-2036 long-term financial plan. I think to make it easy, I'll actually move this one. That's all right. Do I have a seconder, councillors? Councillor Macon, thank you very much. Seconded. I don't know who's going to speak on this one. We're going to speak on this, General Manager, or our acting director? You'd like to speak on it?
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward, I think. Time's a very difficult time.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll take this report as read. However, for awareness, the report flags a request for an extraordinary council meeting in late June to adopt the essential integrated planning and reporting documents, specifically the 26-27 operational plan and the long-term financial plan. These are mandatory documents which are required to be on public exhibition for 28 days prior to adoption by council, and council must adopt them by 30 June. There is insufficient time between the May and June meetings for the required period of public exhibition, and for multiple reasons it's unfeasible for staff to have draft documents prepared for the April meeting.
Councillor Montgomery?
It's the same date as the, sorry, 2 years there, the thing's on in Canberra.
As the Alba,
The
it
national-
conflicts with the Alba conference.
Sorry?
The Alba conference.
Yes, no. So those are like, and
Yes.
same as the mayor and the general manager won't be here.
Yep.
The 25th is not going to
Pick
work.
up.
Not on a Thursday anyway.
No, that's what I meant, it could be another day, but it won't work on the 25th.
Yep. So do you want to do the later date right now, or you want to put it down that you know, we have an extraordinary meeting, but we confirm the date next month. Probably the simplest way to do it. So we'll change it to.
Sorry, I just.
No, it's a good pick up. Thank you, Councillor. No,
Same.
it's a good pick up. I read it and didn't pick it up. The amendment that we confirm that we'll be having an extraordinary meeting, and then we'll confirm the date at the next month, the April meeting. Probably the simplest way to do it.
Is that an amendment?
Yep. So as a mover, I'm happy with the amendment. Councillor Macon was the second. Was Councillor?
Yeah, that's fine.
You're happy with the amendment?
Yeah.
So the amendment becomes a motion. Just gives you a bit of time then to work back, doesn't it? Yeah.
Pretty sure we have the same last year for the financials anyway, isn't
Sure. No, not yet. No, we're waiting for you to write the amendment. Easter this year just makes April
Yeah.
very problematic.
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Oh, but so the amendment will, sorry, I haven't written it. The amendment will be so two councils by no later than June council meeting to be held in June, just get rid of 2026. So, no, held in June 26.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's fine, yeah, sorry, you
Yeah.
fixed it, no worries. So that's,
You want to say date to be decided,
um,
date to be confirmed.
yeah, you can confirm the date. Do you want to pronounce that or one of the things, isn't it? No, it says it's going to be held in June, so we've got it there, we'll just confirm the dates next month. Sorry, it's a bit messy, but it was just,
Yeah.
best way to do it. Right, we'll put that one then, that the Mayor receives a request in writing signed by these two councillors by no earlier than 11th of June 2026 for an extraordinary council meeting to be held in June 2026 for the purpose of adopting.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that date of the 11th of June will change dependent on the date
Yeah.
at which the meeting is being held.
11 will have to
It's a
change.
maximum period of 14 days before the meeting.
Yep.
Can, through you, Mr Mayor, if I can suggest the
Just put
date
1st of June.
of the 29th of June.
Yeah. Oh, you want to suggest a date now?
Date being on the 29th of June for the extraordinary meeting. That gives us a day to upload, if it's approved on the 29th, upload the documents to the council website before the 30th.
Yep. Council wants a minute or two to make
Monday
sure
the
that date's happy with
29th.
that. Councillor Gorman, you happy with that?
Well, I thought you wanted us.
No, we're just saying if we change it now from
Yeah.
to actually put the date in of the 29th,
Least
if we
it's
just have a quick look
Yeah.
at your calendars, if everyone's happy with 29th,
Yeah.
we'll say it's coming back. You happy?
Monday,
Councillor
29.
Councillor Rolls, all good? Righto, yeah? That's all right.
Is that a 5 o'clock
That
meeting?
gives you
Which
28
means
days.
to the 15th,
Oh,
would be the earliest at which that request in writing could be provided.
That still gives us a 28 days.
Yeah, well, that's what we're
Yeah.
doing, the extraordinary meeting
Yeah.
to be able to give us that blank for the 28 days.
Yeah. Right. Got Mayor receives a request in writing signed by two councillors by no earlier than the 15th of June 2026 for an extraordinary council meeting to be held on the 29th of June for the purpose of adopting the 2026-27 operational plan, 26-27 to 35-36 long-term financial plan. Got it. Everyone's happy with that, councillors?
Yeah.
Not at the moment, no, it'll probably be we can discuss that later on if you need to make it after hours or anything like that, councillor. Yep. All right, we'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour on that one? All those against? Thank you, councillors. We've got there in the end. And thank you, Liz. Right, now we move on to 11, which is our infrastructure services report. Yep, no, councillor. Sorry? Okay, we moved the amendment, have we? Righto, now we've got to go back and move the motion. All those in favour of the motion, councillors? Does that become the amendment? All those against? Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Executive Assistant, for picking me up on that. All right, next one we move on. Now we finally get to your report. All right. Councillors, we move on to infrastructure services report. Council notes information provided on the infrastructure works completed in February 2026 and the plan works for March 2026. I have a mover and a seconder, councillors. Moved by Councillor Montgomery and seconded by Councillor Neal. Thank you very much. I'll ask our new director to present this report to us, if you'd like.
I'm happy to take the report as read through Mr. Mayor. Council's obviously been working, it all covers off the works that have been covered off in the directorate. As far as natural disasters are concerned, obviously we've been working through a series of works with natural disasters funding from government and other programs of works which align to various government funding programs. We're on track for those. Some of those are obviously have a term for this financial year, and we've got some other works that we're programming for which do mature at the next financial year. So we're working through those programs. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions of the director, councillors? No questions on the report? No. I suppose I think we've got doing a fair bit of work on the gravel roads. I think we had a fair bit of rain a few weeks ago, which caused some damage. We've probably done a bit of an assessment on those, have we?
We have.
Obviously, that's next month, but I'll just...
Yeah, absolutely. And we have suffered some impact on some of our unsealed road network. We've gone out and the teams have gone out to make safe. So there's a lot of work that's gone out there to do roads inspections and to make safer. One of those might know was Kangaroo Road. So we had a few works there, and we've had to go and do some reworks because some of the work we've been doing, it has caused damage on some of the work that are actually currently underway.
Yeah, probably that's what I was getting at. I thought we're working through that, and then some of them come along and hit that. So we can't really go back, and the disaster funding's all redone. So we're sort of
That's correct. But we will obviously go back, do those inspections, and make safe. And if there's anything to report, then we will.
Very good. No, there's no more comments in council. Thank you very much for that one. I'll put that report to the recommendation that council notes that report to the vote. All those in favour, the councillors? All those against? Thank you, councillors. Thank you, director. Oops, lost it. 2, we'll move on to environmental services report. Development applications, construction certificates and complying developments. Council notes the report on development applications, construction certificates and complying development applications determined during the period 1st of February 26 to the 28th of February 2026. We have a move and a second, councillors. Councillor Gorman, thank you, and Councillor Rolls. I think it's straightforward, but I'll ask if anyone's got any questions or comments regarding any of these complying certificates. To the director, no questions? No? Very good. I'll put that one to the vote then. All those in favour of that recommendation, councillors? All those against? Thank you. Next we move on 12.2, which is a development application 16/2025 for a 3-lot subdivision. There's a recommendation that council notes that the reason for the decision is that the proposal largely complies with section 415 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. 2, development application number 16/2025 being for a 3-lot subdivision be approved by council subject to the recommended conditions listed in the Appendix A of the assessment report and be signed under delegated authority by the General Manager. And 3, that the General Manager then registers this planning decision in line with section 375A of the Local Government Act 1993, including the names of all the councillors who supported the decision and the names of any councillors who opposed the decision or have taken to have opposed this decision. I'll have a move and a second of this one, councillor. Councillor Montgomery and seconded by Councillor Parlett. Thank you, councillors. I'll ask Mr. Luke Sheen, if you'd like to, our Director of Environmental Services, to speak on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, it's a development application 16/2025. It proposes a 3-lot subdivision on the property which is known as 62 Manganese Road, Gretful. So that's the development site. The site's owned by Craig and Tamara McMahon, but the application was lodged by Mr. Carl Lucas on behalf of the owners. A copy of the subdivision plan and the statement of environmental effects is included in attachment 1, which is the attachment to the report. The application is being reported to council due to a submission being received as part of the public consultation process. So the original plan proposed additional allotments, so they included sort of almost battle axe allotments. When we initially went out to public consultation, there was 2 submissions. We went back to the applicant and asked for some further additional information and a revised plan. They've come back with the current plan, which is before you, which is the 3-lot subdivision. So we re-advertised that, it went through the public consultation process, and 1 submission was received in relation to that. So that's why it's been reported. The development site's located on Manganese Road, so it's got an area of 2.13 hectares in size, and it's currently vacant. There was a previous dwelling approved for that site, but they never started construction on that. However, the layout of the allotments would allow that development to go ahead and be within the boundaries of one of the created allotments. It's located within the R5 large lot residential zone. As I said, it proposes 3 allotments, so they vary in size from 6,123 square metres right through to 8,605 square metres. They've also got proposed on each allotment building envelopes. The original subdivision that created the development site had a building envelope on it. So the original plan was to try and keep that, but we actually asked the applicant to modify those so that they were actually, the building envelopes weren't spread over the whole 3 lots, and they were individual building envelopes within each site. So that's what's on the proposed plan of subdivision. So an assessment of the application has identified that it meets the requirements of the Weddin LEP, the Development Control Plan. It also meets the objectives of the R5 zone. It meets the minimum lot size, which is 4,000 square metres for that area within the R5 zone. And also, the allotments will be provided with the necessary services to service each allotment, be water. They'll also have power, we're required to have power and access and telecommunications. There's no sewer in that location. However, with the size of the allotments, that's been assessed that there's sufficient area on each site for a compliant site effluent management system to be installed, and that will be assessed as when they get developed for a future residential development. So the site, which is outlined in the report, the actual site is identified as a heritage item. The reason for that is, even though it's vacant land, it's I suppose because it was mapped and it formed part of the adjoining property to the west, which does contain a heritage item. It's just been a leftover in terms of the mapping. So it wasn't updated in the LEP, so by virtue of that, it still becomes a heritage item. So in that regard, there was a heritage assessment undertaken. So we're not just looking at the current site, but any potential impacts on adjoining items or nearby heritage items. So that's outlined in the report to say we don't think, it's considered that there won't be any undue impact from this development on the adjoining heritage item. The front portion of the allotments is also identified within the flood planning area, which is shown in the mapping within the report. So again, it's a flood control lot. So when we actually have a closer look at, which is in figure 4, have a closer look at the flood mapping from the Emu Creek Floodplain Risk Management Study and Plan, which was done in 2012. The yellow line is the flood planning level, which is the water height plus 500 mil freeboard. So that's why it extends out and covers the front portion of this allotment. The blue line within figure 4, which sort of shows the area which will be inundated by water, you can see on that it's actually, it doesn't affect the development site. However, because it's a flood control lot, we do need to consider flooding, which we have done within that report. So the building envelopes that have been created for each site are towards the rear half of each allotment. So that would mean that, yeah, future residential buildings would be outside the flooding area anyway. So there's been an assessment done of the development control plan, or the Weddin development control plan requirements, which is outlined in the report as well, to say it generally meets all the requirements of that. And there was an assessment done of the issues raised in the public submission as well, which is outlined in the report. And based on that overall assessment, a recommendation of approval subject to the conditions listed in Appendix A has been recommended.
Thank you. Questions of the Director, councillors?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, I was just reading for road access for each of those allotments. Is it the developer's role to put road access in before the future development occurs?
So yes, the recommendation is that these are approved subject conditions. Some of those conditions relate to road access. So one of the requirements for a subdivision, particularly if it's a residential subdivision, is that it has to have proposed or will have suitable services, and that includes suitable access. So there's a condition, there's two conditions. One that says they have to get a 138 permit for works within the road reserve, and then they have to construct road access points to each allotment in accordance with council standard. So that will mean that they'll have to come back with the proposed location and the setback and the construction of those, and that will have to be approved by our infrastructure.
Yeah, just there's a lot of, through you, man, there's a lot of water that goes down in front of those blocks, and obviously a few of those across the road, they have big culverts that helps water flow through. So would that be part of those standards that the infrastructure team would
So they'll have to make allowance. So like any driveway access, consideration needs to be made around sight lines, but also that the access can be installed in a manner that it won't restrict the flow of water. Obviously, and whether it's table drain or whether it's curb and guttering, that's all considered as part of that driveway access.
Yep. Beautiful. Yeah, was my worry too, because I said we had other blocks that have built too low, and then they come back on council and say, well, why is my driveway flooding?
Through you, down Manganese Road and Bradley Street, that corner, every time, like the 130 mil of rain we just had, would have been water everywhere there. And if you don't, it'll just sit and not go anywhere.
I did have. I had concern about them removing the contour bank, thinking that the contour bank was placed there to protect other properties or whatever. But going and having a look at it, I think that they've only put the contour bank there to envisage building another block on there. So I think by removing it, just taking it back to what it was, and I'm not really concerned about it. I think that's my main worry. I thought they were going to pull it up and next door neighbours are going to flood or whatever, but I don't think that's the case at all. So, any other questions for the director before we put this one to the vote? No. I agree with it in that it's you're only going to look straight across the road. It's equivalent to the subdivisions across the road. It's in keeping with the RU1, R5 zone and everything like that. So I think it's a good use of that block. I think we need a few more that'll be subdivided and a few more people coming down and building. So I'll put that one to the vote. Then there's three recommendations. The council, the reason the decision proposed largely complies with section 415 in the Environmental Act. 2, development application 1625 being a three lot subdivision be approved by council subject to the conditions listed in Appendix A, and the assessment report be signed under delegated authority by the General Manager. And 3, the General Manager registers the planning decision in line with section 375A of the Local Government Act, including the names of councillors who supported the decision and the names of any councillors who opposed it or are taken to oppose the decision. That being said then, can you please hold your hands up and keep them up while we record everybody? All those in favour, councillors? That's simple. All those one up. All those against? Very good. Thank you. Unanimous. That one's good. Next, we move on to a very similar report, 12.3, a development application 2325. This is for a 5-lot subdivision. The recommendations on this are similar. That one, that council notes the reason for the decision is that the proposal largely complies with section 415 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. 2, development application number 20-2025 being for a 5-lot subdivision be approved by council subject to the recommended conditions listed in Appendix A of the assessment report and be signed under delegated authority by the General Manager. And 3, the General Manager then registers his planning decision in line with section 375A of the Local Government Act 1993 to include the names of councillors who supported the decision and the names of councillors who opposed or are taken to have opposed that decision. Do we have a move and a second for this one, Councillor? Moved by Councillor Parlett, seconded by Councillor Niven. Thank you. Again, we'll ask the Director again to speak on this subdivision.
Mr Mayor, item 12.3 relates to development application 23/2025. So it proposes a 5-lot subdivision of the property which is known as 32 Murray's Lane, Grenfell. The development application was lodged by SRD Land Consulting on behalf of the owner, who is Mrs Gail Lander. Copy of the proposed subdivision plan along with the statement of environmental effects is included in the attachment to the report. The application is reported to council because there was 2 submissions which were received during the public consultation process. So the development site located on Murray's Lane, it's got a land area of 2.46 hectares. It currently contains a dwelling and associated structures, including a shed, rainwater tanks, and on-site effluent management system. The site's located within the R5 large lot residential zone. The proposal includes the creation of 5 allotments, so one being 8,623 square metres and the remaining 4 being 4,005 square metres. The assessment of the application has identified that the proposal meets the requirements of the Weddin LEP, including the objectives of the zone, and it meets the minimum lot size, which is 4,000 square metres. It will provide the necessary services, including water, power, telecommunications and access, which they're outlined on the plan of subdivision. The proposal generally meets the requirements of the Weddin DCP as well. So the assessment is, during the assessment period, there was public submissions. They've been taken into account, and there's been an assessment of the issues raised, which is outlined in the assessment report. The site's been deemed suitable in terms of additional traffic, so in terms of sight lines, which is outlined in the supporting information, to say there are suitable sight lines to propose access locations for people to safely enter and exit the site. The accesses will require a small number of trees to be removed in the road reserve area. There was additional information asked for by the applicant because we do have some sort of critical habitat in that side of the road reserve. However, the access locations have been chosen so that it's only small pine trees that have got to be removed in that location. An easement for the drainage of water will be created as part of the subdivision along the northern boundary of the allotments, so it will be drained down there. There is some stormwater infrastructure in Henry Lawson Way towards the front of on the eastern side of this allotment. So one of the concerns was that we wanted to make sure that any stormwater diversion down into Henry Lawson Way doesn't sort of cause any issues from a road point of view or to any existing infrastructure. So you will note that in the recommended conditions of consent there is a condition that specifically relates to getting some finer details around the discharge point of that prior to them undertaking any works and prior to us issuing, and then they're obviously going to undertake those works before we issue a subdivision certificate for it. So based on that and based on the assessment that's been undertaken, there's a recommendation that the development application be approved subject to the conditions listed in Appendix A.
Yep, questions or comments? Councillor Rolls?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just reading through there, each lot will be just over the minimum allotment size. But then I read that there's going to be an easement on the southern boundary for the existing site's water access. But then there's going to be an easement on the northern boundary for stormwater. So with those easements in place, what will the usable lot sizes be?
I'm not sure, but the allotment size is the allotment size. Doesn't exclude the easements.
Councillor Gorman?
Through the Mayor, in terms of the fact that both the submissions that went in had similar concerns, and both of them were requesting that instead of 5 allotments, it went back to, say, 3 or even 4. I got the impression from reading it they would have been happy with 4 if need be. They put in the submission, was there any reaction to that or any change to the application as a result of that?
No, so generally our process is as part of the assessment process, if we get submissions, we will generally write to the applicant and give them a copy of the basis of the submissions. So we sort of keep people's details private, as they're happy to give that out. With this one, we asked for additional information, and we also gave them a copy of the public submissions and give them an opportunity to respond to that. They've come back and said, look, they still wanted to proceed with the 5 lot that meets the minimum lot size, so they wanted to move ahead with the 5 lots.
One of the things as well, like it's not at the edge of the R zone, is it? Like it's right in the middle of it. So you sort of, there's an expectation if that's our allotment size that people can build on those allotments. You know, they can do it. So you sort of can't say to somebody, well, yeah, you have the right to, but I don't want you to because I'd like it to be a little bit bigger. You know.
Planning purpose, I suppose, for us. I mean, we can, as I said, we generally sometimes with development applications, if you can sort of mediate a happy solution, but if the applicant ultimately is the one that's applying for the application, sometimes they're happy to change the development to suit certain sort of issues that might be raised or concerns, but other times they say, well, that's meets all the requirements. That's what they're proposing.
Any questions more of the Director Council before we put this one to the vote? Oh, Councillor Rolls.
So is that properly serviced by the town water supply, or is it
Beyond it currently is serviced by water. What the proposal is that they'll disconnect their current service and they'll need to extend the water supply up to service the whole 5 allotments.
So that'll be done as part of this? Is that each block will be
So
the
generally with all these, where water is available or within a certain distance of water, or whether it's sewer in other residential subdivisions, is that we approve it. There'll be conditions saying that they have to provide certain services, so whether that's sewer, water, power, telecommunications, then they have to provide documentary evidence, and that's usually from whether it's the Water Authority, Council, or Water Authority being Central Tablelands Water, Sewer Authority being Council, or it could be telecommunications from NBN Co, it could be power from Essential Energy. They have to confirm that each block has been adequately serviced before we release the subdivision certificate, which is the certificate that they can use to go actually register the subdivision.
So really, when we approve it, we're not taking into consideration the submissions. We're looking at whether or not they meet the recommendations and...
No, the submissions have been taken
Yes.
in the actual response. So if you read right through the response, the Director has responded to each one of those issues that have been brought up within the submissions.
So under clause 4.15 of the Environmental Planning Assessment Act, it outlines how you need or what we have to consider as part of the development application assessment. So that goes right through from the LEP requirements to DCPs to the state environmental planning policies. And then one of those is if we do public consultation and we receive submissions, we have to consider those. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because someone puts a submission in that the developer has to change their development. We've got to consider them. So if it raises valid issues and we go, yep, that is something that should be changed or modified or what it may be, that's sometimes the case. But we will always consider a valid submission as part of that assessment.
Councillor
Thank you,
McGowan?
Mr Mayor. So will they all be rated as separate? Right.
Titles.
Once the subdivision certificate has been issued and they go to the Land Titles Office or Land Registry Office and get it formally registered, it can take, I'm not sure what the time frame is, it used to take about 6 to 8 weeks for them to, they go through and do a detailed check to make sure that you're not trying to inherit some land or lose some land. Once they are formally registered by the Land Registry Office, that's when they are now. That's when they are created as 5 allotments, and then they send that notification through to council, and then they're formally split up. Mapping wise is updated, and then they're formally separated for rating purposes. But until that's done, they continue on. I mean, the development application really is just the concept of doing the subdivision until they actually do the work, so it would be still rated as just one block until they go through that whole process.
Thank you. Any more comments, Councillor? Yeah, Councillor Rolls? Yeah.
Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, just reading both submissions, and both of them have referenced the infrastructure drainage capacity. You mentioned that we believe the current stormwater infrastructure will be able to handle.
So we asked the applicant to provide some additional information in terms of stormwater drainage. So they did indicate on the original plan along the northern boundary that was going to be an easement so that each block could drain their water down to Henry Wilson Way. We asked for some further details which our engineers have looked over and said that they generally are happy with that. So they'll obviously have to create that infrastructure or that along the northern boundary. The only thing that we have conditioned is that we want to get some further details around the discharge of that into the road reserve area. So there's actually a culvert not too far away from that. So it's just making sure that when it gets out into the road reserve, that can adequately drain down to that culvert area and then drain away.
So in relation to receiving that additional information, should we wait until that's available before we make a decision on this, or?
So I mean, we're generally happy with. I mean, from an assessment point of view, we think that it's suitable to drain it down there. It's just around getting some finer details around that discharge point. So whether that is it gets to the edge of their, or would be the eastern boundary joining the road, whether there has to be some sort of a concrete drain or something to formally discharge that water over to where the stormwater culvert is, or whether that can be done with a natural, or what is it, bank or something like that, or how does it, that's probably an engineering point of view, so that when they get there that they slow the water down, break it up a little bit so it spreads out. It's not just, as I said, it might be a metre wide sort of contour bank directing a whole bunch of water down there. We don't want it to shoot out into the road or sort of, not be directed around adequately to that culvert.
No, I understand that the developer is not looking to build on these blocks, but in future we wouldn't allow a construction of that property that drained into the culvert along Murray's Lane, would we? They wouldn't be allowed to drain out to that boundary.
Look, we would have to consider, but the idea would be that most of the stormwater would go to the back of the properties. The idea is that obviously that you can't drain your water down or direct your water off hard stand surface areas through someone else's property unless there's an easement. So they're just proposing that easement.
So that would be nice.
Yeah.
We're not really creating any more water, it's the same amount.
No.
It's just the hard stand. Councillor, yep, Councillor Gorman.
I have been approached by a couple of locals who were concerned about the culverts up on that Young Road and in that area. And to keep them happy and for my own interest, I went for a walk and I've taken photos of them, and a couple of those culverts are very badly blocked. And what my concern would be, well, obviously they need to be cleaning out, but if they're blocked now and all this extra water comes through, is it at our cost that we have to take them out and put in bigger culverts or add extra culverts?
No, so
How do we cover the cost of that if that's happening in the future?
Development application is that we would consider or assess whether the existing infrastructure is capable of servicing these new blocks. What I suppose the feedback that I've got is that yes, that is the case, they can. If it was something where a development was going to impact on infrastructure to a point where we went, no, it needs to be upgraded, that's then something that we can trigger to say that the developer has to upgrade that particular infrastructure. In terms of cleaning though, that's a normal operational requirement of council. That's not a developer's issue.
I know I wasn't saying that, but I just thought that in case there was more water than we were expecting and they weren't sufficient and we needed to enlarge the size or the number of the culverts, has that been taken into account? That's what I was asking.
There's obviously the stormwater off that allotment of land is directed that way anyway.
Yeah, it's a sloping block.
The difference is that once you start having hard stand surface areas, but any development, any residential development is going to be required these days from a BASIC's point of view to have a rainwater tank. Now, we don't know what size rainwater tanks because we don't know what size houses people are potentially going to build on each block. But yes, as part of future applications, we also consider stormwater. Where are they going to direct it? How are they going to direct it? So if there's an easement there and infrastructure for them to divert overflow from a rainwater tank, they can do that. We're making sure that they're doing that in an appropriate manner. And look, there's sort of obviously engineering principles around how that works and all those types of things, which was sort of being considered. They've already got an engineer on one of those plans around that proposed drainage along the northern boundary of the allotments to say that that will work. It's really just us making sure that when it gets to the end, that just goes, oh, that's our boundary, it's now council's responsibility. No, we want to make sure that it just gets around into the culvert.
Councillor Parlett.
I'd just like to thank the Director for the work that he has done, working with the developers to meet council requirements and the preparation of these two applications that we have been given as councillors so that we have a good understanding and we could read up the head to understand the requirements. So thank you very much for it's a lot of work there, and I know it's really important because we do need more building blocks, so it's a plus for us. And extra rates coming back eventually, so
That's just
win.
byproduct.
And actually, through the Mayor, it's good that occasionally these developments come through council because then we can see the extent of the work and the effort that's gone into it and how thoroughly you've looked at it. So it's not a bit of a circus. It's a
very thorough. It's very thorough.
very well thought out procedure and process. So the community would be very pleased to know that, Luke.
Thank you.
Right. Well, any more questions or comments regarding this one, councillors? I think we've had a really good discussion on it. So there's 3 recommendations there, which I won't read out, but I think we've all read them. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of those recommendations, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. That was everybody. And all those against? No. All good. No worries. I'll put my hand up. Thank you. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you very much, the Director, for that very comprehensive report. Next, we'll put back to you for your update on the rural waste facilities. Once again, let's get the recommendation here that Council notes the report providing an update on the actions taken regarding the remediation of the Quandiala and Crackable waste facilities. I have a move and a second to councillors. Moved by Councillor Gorman and second by Councillor Montgomery. Thank you. I'll ask our Director of Environmental Services to speak on this.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So look, as councillors and the community are aware, we were required to close the Crackable and Quandy waste facilities due to asbestos contamination on the advice of the EPA and an occupational hygienist. So just to go back through the history, is that the EPA originally required us to remove all the asbestos contamination that proved out from our point of view that was going to be financially unviable, that we just didn't have the budget, given that the estimates that come back was going to be in the millions, with the sheer amount of material that we would have to take off there. So we have been having regular meetings with the EPA, and as part of those regular meetings, the EPA agreed for council to proceed with an investigation around encapsulation of the asbestos affected material at both sites. That was the advice that was given to us by a couple of waste consultants, the occupational hygienist and also the asbestos removalist, that would be the best way to handle it. So they gave us the green light just to go through and do an investigation. Council has engaged Premise Australia to undertake the necessary reporting, an investigation around that to prove out hopefully that would be suitable at both sites. There was a large body of work that needed to be undertaken, including sort of geotech sort of investigations. There was also a sampling of some of the material out there where asbestos was to classify the waste as well. So that's all been undertaken. In one of the previous updates for councillors, we sort of talked about that the occupational hygienist had come back, the Premise Australia had come back and recommended that we get an occupational hygienist to issue a clearance certificate for the internal driveways. And if we could get that, that would actually reduce the amount of material that have to be encapsulated on each site by a substantial amount. So we ended up having to get the asbestos removalist out there to walk over all the internal roads of both sites and remove any asbestos fragments, which they done. We ultimately got the occupational hygienist back out there to issue clearance certificates. That was all provided to Premise Australia, which allowed them then to give us the final draft or draft report for the encapsulation at both sites. So that came through earlier this month, I think it was. That was then passed based on what they've said is on the 10th of March it was. So they recommended that we send that draft off to the EPA to get their feedback on that before they finalise the actual cell design, just in case there was any major concerns, so that we weren't sort of wasting money or... So we've done that. We sent that the next day to the EPA. Unfortunately, the last couple of meetings we had scheduled with them, we had to postpone because the EPA officers weren't available, but we did get some feedback from them today. So they were generally happy with that draft report. So we've provided their feedback back to Premise. So we're hoping that will allow them to basically finalise that report. We'll get that back, send that back to the EPA for hopefully final sign-off, and if they agree to what the proposal is, then we can start getting some quotes to get underway with the work. So,
it's quite a process.
Yeah, so they'll be quite big cells that will have to obviously, so some detailed engineering around the cell size and the capacity of those, because we've got friable asbestos, particularly at Quandiala. So the requirements is that it has to have 3 metres worth of cover over it. So We have got to design a cell where we can put that in, potentially cover that with other bonded asbestos, and then we've got to have a capping material that goes over the top of it. Now there was some geotech requirements or problems, or not, shouldn't say problems, but concerns around Quantiala because they run into some sand, so in the location of where the cell was going to be. So they have their engineers just working in the background around what's the most cost-effective way of dealing with that, whether it does need a liner, and whether sort of a material that we excavate can be used as the liner to put down first before we put the asbestos over the top. So once that's done, as I said, hopefully that will allow council to then go off and get some quotes, and then if that fits within our budget, we can then start getting the majority of that work done to get them back to their site. Just as an indication, I've got in there, so at the moment, we've spent about $173,000 on both sites, directly related with the remediation. So that includes a bit over $74,000 that we were lucky to get through with some grant funding from the EPA, which was relating to some illegal dumping and flood waste recovery. So that paid for some of the fencing that was required out there that was damaged, but served two purposes. It also secures the sites, and we also managed to replace both cameras at both sites. So we've got sort of new high-tech cameras to provide better security. But yeah, so we're up. That's the extent of the works that we've done so far. Obviously, there will be a lot more involved once we get that final report signed off by the EPA.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, the 683,000 in the domestic waste management reserve. Yeah, unrestricted at the moment. So we do have money put aside for doing some remediation work. We've just got to get through this convoluted process to do it. So, yeah, Councillor Rolls.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, understanding it's a little while off, but if those two stations were to reopen, are there any further stipulations that would be required for that FOGO that rolls out in 2030?
So we are currently doing a FOGO assessment. So we, combined with Cowra and Hilltops, undertook a bin audit. So people would have seen a strange truck driving around. So that was done in February. That was designed to identify how much FOGO waste was going into each bin. Now we've just received only this week the draft report on that. The next stage is that they'll go off and actually do a feasibility study for the FOGO. As it currently stands, FOGO is mandatory from 2030. So it is for any residential property that we provide, let's say, a curbside collection service. We have to provide a FOGO service to. The only exemption is on a property which is over, don't quote me, 2 hectares, I think. So that would be the villages, all of Granville, anywhere where we're providing a curbside collection service would be a FOGO service as well. So we, as a small council with one garbage truck, would be really struggling to try and implement that. So the idea of the FOGO assessment is to, see what actually how much FOGO waste is actually going into the curbside bins. See whether it's viable to have a FOGO service, and then go off, and because it's not just the service can pick up the FOGO, you've actually got to take it somewhere so it can be processed.
That was my question. Would there have to be something done at Quantiala and Cragable, or would it be?
So tight controls around FOGO because you probably, I mean, not to rule anything out, but as part of the evaluation of looking around, well, where can we take it to the processing facility? Do we try and do that in-house, or would we need to take it to another another location or another company to process
Whether
it.
volumes are going to be big enough for private industry to take it up.
Through them there, you need significant scale for those sort of operations. You're talking big dollars, so.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Macon?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director is, so once it's just, for my understanding, once it's encapsulated or covered in all goes well, does that remain, you just don't touch that part of the waste facilities, like that's it, that they're done, and then a new, whatever new system is put in place, transfer system or whatever, that has to be well away from that area. It's just basically untouchable.
So yeah, so we would identify that on site, so whether that's through some signage or fencing, so that people in the future know what's there. So we probably have some, like a survey plan and have that noted as a contaminated site. But tip, it's going to be contaminated anyway. We've tried to pick locations at both sites so that, yes, we've got suitable area available. If they reopen and we want to go on transfer station, that we've got nice access still available in certain locations. But yes, that would be sort of set aside as a, but while it's quite safe because it's got a metre worth of capping material over the top of it, it's really just identifying it so that no one comes along in 10 years' time and none of us are here and start sticking around to do some work out there.
Just that's one thing that's reading the report. The initial consultants who did the pickup must have done a terrific job because there was no, on their testing, there was no, on those sites that they actually picked up.
There was one or two.
Was there? No, okay. I thought they must have done a terrific job going out there and picking up all the fibre material.
Zone 7, and 5 asbestos on it.
Yeah. Or was that one that had been cleaned up though, or not?
Well, so
I
quite,
think the roads.
yeah, the roads generally is just sort of, there's, I suppose there's one entry point, but the problem, the friable was because we had a whole bunch of rubbish thrown over the fence, which included some asbestos, and then we had a fire there, and that's when it became friable. So there's a little spot there in front, there's a set of gates straight over. We put new fencing up now to try and prevent that, but there's a small area there which is friable, which will obviously have to be encapsulated somehow, but all the remaining normal internal driveway areas have been good.
Very good, thank you very much.
So it's great, Mr. Are we able to use like fill that we already have access to cab it? We have to use untouched process.
No, so there'll be, so one option is that we can obviously clear off some land where the cell is, scrape off the surface so that any contamination is stockpiled to the side. Then obviously we've got to dig a hole which potentially could be 3 metres, 3.5 metres deep. So we can use some of that, but we did stockpile a lot of soil at Quandialla. So it's on the same site. That's just a little bit, it's basically adjoining. So with a recent roads job out there, so we've got probably, I would say, more than enough stockpile out there to do probably quite hand crackable, hopefully.
Yep, beautiful.
Yep. Good. Councillors, very good. That's a good report. I said it's a very complex procedure to go through all this, and there's a lot of work. So, thank you very much to the director for all the hard work on this and trying to get this plan in place. So, any more questions or councillors? Any questions? We'll put that recommendation. The council notes that report to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you, councillors. We can move on to 12.5. All right. Yeah. The Environmental Service Department Policy Review. The recommendation here that Council rescinds the following 3 policies and removes them from Council's policy register. A, the policy for building and development. B, the policy for general boundary fencing. And C, the policy for boundary fencing in heritage conservation areas. Did you want to speak to this, Director, or are you happy to just take questions? Oh, sorry, no, I moved the second first. Yeah. Moved by Councillor Roll, second by Councillor Montgomery. Thank you, councillors.
I'll give you a quick update if you'd like.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we've done a review of these 3 policies. Now, they were adopted back prior to the Development Control Plan coming into force in 2014. They were also adopted prior to the state environmental planning policy around exempt and compliant development coming into force. So when we read through those policies, essentially the information is sort of really valid now because it was allowing for certain fences to be done without consent. Well, that's no longer the case. It's been overridden by the state environmental planning policy. It takes precedence, so if it doesn't meet exempt development, it needs some form of consent, usually a developer consent if it's in the heritage area. So there'll be a detailed, obviously, development application assessment have to be undertaken for anything that's proposed in terms of fencing. Same with boundary fencing. Boundary fencing is exempt development in a lot of cases, and if it meets certain requirements under the state environmental planning policy. Heritage is a chapter within our DCP, which talks about sort of some fencing and stuff in there too. So it really supersedes those policies. The building and development policy, it's been superseded by a lot of the information is replicated into the Weddin Development Control Plan. So they're basically invalid. So therefore, the recommendation is that they be rescinded.
Contradictory to have them in place as well. So, yeah, Councillor, any questions on this one? Straightforward, Councillor Maker.
Through you, just for my brain. So the DCP just trumps all of them essentially, where they're not needed at all or referenced to anymore.
No. So look, it creates some confusion because you've got to adopt a policy, but then you've got things that's like in a development control plan. So normally the process would be is a state environmental planning policy, LEP, DCP, then a policy. So, so certainly the state environmental planning policy will take precedence over anything that we've got in our policy.
Okay.
It's sort of it's unclear as to, I know the reason why they would have done it at the time to allow for people to do things which they said, oh, we don't need consent for that as long as it meets the policy, but that's all been overridden by the SEP. And as I said, the key requirements under the building and development policy around setbacks and those types of things, it's all outlined in the development control plan.
Thank you. Very good.
Well, there's recommendations there that we rescind the following policies. The policy A, building and development, policy B for general boundary fencing, and policy for C, boundary fencing in heritage conservation areas. That's the recommendations, councillors. We've got to move in a second, so we haven't had a move in a second. No, we did. We just didn't put it on there. No worries. I'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour of those recommendations, councillors? Aye. All those against? Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Director, for that one as well. Move on to the next one is 12.6 is a request for waiving of sewer contributions. There's a recommendation here that council refuses a request to waiver the section 64 sewer contributions applying to development consent of 1/2024, which includes the tourist and visitor accommodation development comprising of a 20-room motel with associated restaurants, managers, residents and car park. As the waivering of the Section 64 sewer contributions does not comply with the requirements of the Grenfell Sewerage Contributions Policy and will have a negative impact on the financial reserves of the Weddin Shire Council Sewer Fund. Do I have a move in a second on these ones, councillors? Moved by Councillor Montgomery and second by Councillor Macon. Thank you very much. I'll ask the Director to speak on this one.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the Development Consent 1/2024 relates to a tourist and visitor accommodation development. So it was a 20-room motel, an associated restaurant and the manager's residence and associated car park, which was approved by council. The consent was issued or is subject to council's adopted or Grenfell Sewer Contributions Policy. So that requires a sewer contribution to be paid based on what the equivalent tenements of the development is going to generate. The policy outlines how to calculate the equivalent tenements. So based on the calculation, based on the number of rooms of the motel, the floor area of the restaurant and kitchen and the manager's residence, that come out to 11.5412 equivalent tenements. under the policy. So in the fees and charges, one equivalent tenement is currently equal to $8,121. So that meant that the resulting contribution payable was $93,726.09. So outlined in the policy, the original advice to the applicants when they were looking at lodging their construction certificate was it's going to be $95,756.34. We did do a review and identified that the equivalent tenement rate for the manager's residence was better aligned with a 2-bedroom unit than with a dwelling. So therefore that did reduce it down by $2,000, a bit over $2,000. So that is required to be paid prior to the issue of a construction certificate as per the policy. So generally what happens is when they're applying for a construction certificate, we give them a fee quote for council's normal construction certificate inspection fees, but we also include within the fee quote if there's any sewer contributions required. So obviously the applicant or the people acting on the development consent raised concern around the cost of that. So they ultimately put in a request to have the contributions waived. So that's the reason why it's been reported to council for a determination, as it's a waiver of a fee or a variance to the policy.
Councillors? Anyone want to make any discussion on this one? But I'd like to move an amendment on this recommendation, if that's all right.
I suggest we move to committee of the whole.
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
So
no
we
worries.
can have discussion. And
Yep.
is that right? Oh,
That's okay. We've got to move that. We move in the committee of the whole. Do we have a second after that? Yeah. Councillors? Yeah, second by Councillor Niven. All those in favour of moving in the committee of the whole, please raise your hand. All those against? Thank you, councillors. Yes. It's okay, councillor. I would make a recommendation myself that we put an amendment to it, which would be the council does not waive the section 64 sewer contributions charge. That council then defers payment of the contributions until the issuing of the occupation certificate. So what we do is then move the paying of it until the actual property is built. And in the meantime, I would ask that council undertakes a comprehensive review of its sewer contributions policy to ensure that the policy remains fair, appropriate, and reflects local conditions. I think I've touched on this many times, that I think our policy needs a review. I think this is a good chance to do it. I think we need to look at it as a comparison. I can get into it, but as a comparison of surrounding shires, I think our cost of our equivalent tenant is quite high, and I think that was based on the new sewage treatment plant. But I think the methodology in that needs to be reviewed. I think the general manager can speak to it if he'd like to, but I think he would agree with me that methodology is probably needs to be updated, and that will obviously change the contributions. And I think this is a good opportunity. It's something it's an incentive for us to do it, which we haven't got to correct that policy. I don't know, I've just asked if you'd like to speak on that the methodology more than anything.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I won't talk to the methodology as
Okay.
such.
Yeah.
I will speak, however, to the comparison to the neighbouring councils, and we are the second most expensive for the 25-26 sewer developer charges out of all of our neighbouring councils. On the flip side, we're actually the lowest as far as the access charges are concerned. So believe that we need to give ourselves time to do the analysis to look at that mix between what a fair access charge should be versus what a fair developer contribution should be. The access charges they're an annual charge. They're chiefly to existing burden on the system, whereas a developer charge is about future burden on the system, so upgrading, extending new infrastructure that development will create.
Councillor Parlow?
I'm quite sympathetic to their circumstances because as we've had history of this sort of scenario in the past where we've had to look at sewer connections and things, and we are very pricey, as we've just been told. My concern is that if we were looking at 3 large houses, now these days if you have a family of 10 people in a house with multiple rooms, they've got 1 sewer connection. You've got a motel here that which will not be using, it won't be full to capacity probably all year. So I just look at it, we are gaining here a very vital thing for our shire, for tourism. Accommodation is a big problem here with any event we try and run. So I think this is something that's a real plus for us, and we're going to gain a lot of, well, coming back into the economy. We're going to gain a lot from this for our community. And I do think that we do need to actually revise our sewer contributions. And we have, it does say here, we can waiver or reduce. I would perhaps suggest we reduce, but I would think we need to bring it back to have a look at what would be a fair and equitable thing to do, given that if it was 3 big homes, they're looking at 1 connection for each of those homes that would be producing the same sort of.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and the Director of Environmental Services can correct me, but my understanding is the current policy doesn't give us the ability to waive the Section 64 charge.
141, I think, and we.
The legislation, so the way that it works is that the sewer headworks charges are called up under the, I suppose, via the Local Government Act, but they're actually imposed under the Water Management Act. Now, it does have a clause in there to say, well, look, you can waive or reduce. Our policy doesn't. The legislation
Does, because I know we have done this in the past, many years ago, when we had a situation where there was multiple properties, they then were sold off as units, and then they were subdivided. So,
True.
And we did waiver. We kept it as one thing. So I know maybe, as the Mayor suggested, sort of delaying or deferring the payments so that we then have time to.
That's my suggestion, is we defer the payment till.
So that we then can actually have a look at what our policy is in fairness to everybody, so it's more equitable. But we need to charge a sewer connection, but, a fair sewer connection.
That's what I think. I think waiving the fee is impractical. It is an impost on the system. We've charged it to everybody else. We have to charge that. I don't think we can just pull a random figure out and say, oh, we're going to reduce it by such and such. I think that has to be backed by some real good decision making, and the best way to do it is revise that policy, look at the policy, and by postponing it until the actual occupation certificate, it gives them that time, plus it allows us to do it, but also allows them to go ahead and build. So they can actually, they have to wait until we do that review. If that review takes us 2 months or 3 months, they don't have to just sit there on their hands waiting. We can say, you can go ahead, but in the knowledge that we are reviewing it. Obviously, we can't guarantee that it's going to be less, but we would make the assumption that I would, but I mean, that's, I can't preempt that, but I still think that there's, and I said, I've brought this up before, that the policy is not, I don't think it's the best benefit for the community, it's the best.
I think we need to put that, the 141 waiver or reduction of fees and charges into our policy, so that we do have that odds in when there's an odd circumstance we can, but we need to get our facts right, and we need to, we need sewer contributions, now obviously, but a fairer contribution.
And I think noting too, well, they actually haven't asked for a reduction, they've just asked for a waiver. So I was pretty making sure that actually what they asked. Any other comments, councillors?
The issue with wavering fees, whichever fees they ask, you could create a precedent for all. So if you're almost going to waive $100,000 from one person, someone has a sewage charge of 30,000, where you gave that person 100, I want mine for free. So with the sewer contributions policy, is that something that gets externally done, or is it internally that the decision is made? Because if once it's set, it sets the tone. So is there an industry standard that we need to have, or is there an external body that we go, this is what it is, how can we make this work for us, or do we just backbone it off other relatively neighbouring councils?
Just in my
Sorry, that's a really good look.
That's a big question, but in my looking, the IPART has some recommendations with nothing set in stone.
Yeah.
And when we looked around at some neighbouring councils, they all seem to have used different things as well. So it was with some different processes. So I think that's why I said we need to have a more in-depth look at it. We did do the previous one in-house.
Yeah.
It was done in-house, but like I said, it was on the back of building a brand new sewage treatment plant. And I think their reaction was based upon, a lot of the decisions were based upon the cost and the expense of that new sewage treatment plant.
Yeah.
But then we have to also weigh the differences between encouraging development in the community and encouraging the things that we need based upon
being sustainable.
Councillor Hinton?
Has there been some reclassification there, reduced 2,000? What was there was put there $8,000 and then so that's been reclassified, hasn't it? Or
No.
No, that was only for the housing portion for the residents.
So when we look at the whole development,
yeah,
so the way that it works is you look at the development and work out what the equivalent tenement is. The
yeah,
equivalent tenement is equal to like a 3-bedroom home. So when we worked it out, because it's got multiple areas in the motel, like what it'll do is say, right, I've got it in there. So in terms of the motel rooms, they're charged at 0.45 equivalent tenements per room. So times 20, that ended up to 9. It was a little bit ambiguous in around the manager's residence. So it could have been identified as just like a house, or when we actually went through, we said, look, it's probably more fair to treat it like a 2-bedroom dwelling. So rather than the manager's residence component being the equivalent of 1 tenement, it come down to 0.75. So that sort of dropped it by 0.25 of the equivalent tenement.
well, I don't see any problem with that. I think that's about where we should be, because you've got equivalent tenements. It's there's a water directorate or something. It's years since I've read it, but no, I don't think there's a problem there. If that's come down to that, I think that's fair.
So I mean, it's dropped by 2,000. So instead of our original advice was that it was going to be, original workings was 95,756.
Yeah.
It's come down to 93. So it's only dropped $2,000 based on that.
Councillor Montgomery?
I think the deferment is a fair thing, especially seeing as we were given a deferment last month for our development.
I didn't bring that up, Councillor.
I'm sitting here thinking, well, yeah, that guy hadn't given the waiver, and then we could get a waiver too. So, no, I mean, I think a deferment is legitimate, but I don't think you can defer it. Like, you can waive it. You have to, somebody has to pay at some stage. And it's a commercial thing. They're not doing it for nothing.
A private business, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Council has tried to encourage development and businesses to come here. We've been trying to, we haven't offered any incentive in this way with this business. So I just think that's where looking at the actual amount we're going to charge them is going to be fair. But as Councillor Macon said, we've got to be very careful. Precedent set. We've got to be fair and consistent moving forward. But we do want to encourage development. We do want to encourage industry. So how do we do this as a council and do it equitably all the way through?
I think that's what.
I think that's what he's done.
And that's what the different things.
I have no issue with the number of equivalent tenements. I think that's, the director's done completely. I just have an issue with how much we're charging for the equivalent tenement, and that's why I think we need to review that amount in our fees and charges. I think
The research wasn't hard to do to uncover just how expensive we are compared to the neighbouring councils. Like, we might only be the second most expensive, but it's a big difference between us and a big difference. So I think deferring it, reviewing the policy, and then letting them continue on with their development will be the way to go.
And considering the, the tourism and the number of people that come to this town, yes, we desperately need more accommodation, especially during the festival. However, that's a business and they'll set it up and it'll be a very profitable business within the town. So 93,000 sounds huge at the moment, but ultimately in the long run, it sets them up and their business will be a bonus for us, for the community and the other businesses in town, but it'll also be huge for the owner of that particular business.
So that's the business decision. But, yeah. I said I think we need to bring ourselves a little bit more in line with surrounding councils. We're trying to encourage, we want growth here, we want people to come here, we want someone to develop. I just don't think that we should be, someone can look at, like as Councillor Rolls just said, a quick Google search and we go, well, if we did it in Carrick, it'd be $25,000 less. So, that's what I'm saying. I think our policy needs to be adjusted. I just think, and by reopening that policy and going back and we can look at all those things. We can look back at as you said, at how do we support business or how do we support growth in that policy. Like I said, I have nothing to do with, no problems with equivalent tenants. It's our calculation, our methodology that we've come up to calculate the value for that equivalent tenant, the cost.
We've just moved for 7 subdivisions, like 7 blocks and not one of them is going to have connection because they're all going to have their own sewage system, which means that therefore that's 7 blocks we're now not getting funding for. So no, but it's still like, so if you're going to lose money there, you've got to be making it somewhere. You can't just cut out the connection.
Yes.
I don't think we need to make money on some developers because some developments won't actually be drawing on the system. Yeah, but it's just that,
we have to just make sure are we making the right amount of money to make the business, and are we drawing from the right thing? As I said, are we charging the right amount of develop contributions, but as well as charging the amount of access? So that balance, getting that balance right, very low on one, very high on the other. Perhaps there needs to be that consideration as whether or not we should be calculating the overall running cost out and the whole community pays for that running costs, or are we putting too great on somebody who's developing or building? That's what I said. All that stuff can be looked at. That's why the policy will come back to council for adoption and for discussion.
And also, we're one of the lowest rates in the area and the highest development, so you've got to have some thought about this. Well, we are financially sustainable.
I think that's why fairness is important.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments before you?
Do you want to move an amendment? Or we need to go back into open council? I'll move, we go out.
Moved by Councillor Pallett, we go back into open council. Moved by, second by Councillor Rolls. All those in favour, we move out of the committee of the whole. Thank you. All those against, thank you. So, I have an amendment moved, so I would like to move, or did you wish to move that amendment, or you had a different amendment, Councillor Pallett?
I would rather see that we defer payment, defers payment, number 2, until the issue. But I think we need to review our sewer contribution charges.
That's what it's in the policy.
Yeah, so in the policy,
Yeah.
But see, it says council doesn't waiver the sewer.
Yeah, so
we have to respond to we have to respond to the application, which was completely waived. So I think if we one say we're not waiving it, you're deferring your payment, and then reviewing the whole process.
But their sewer contribution may change if our policy the amounts change.
Yep.
Thank you. Just wanted that confirmation. Thank you.
Right. So I've moved that as a amendment. Anyone like to second that amendment? Councillor Gorman, thank you very much. Anyone further discussions on that amendment, councillors? No discussions on it? No. In that case, I'll put the amendment to the vote, which now becomes a motion. No, we have to actually speak on the amendment, then I'll put it to the vote. So all those in favour of the amendments, councillors? Thank you. All raise your hands. All those against?
Yes, yeah.
Councillor Nichols?
The director's recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep, and so the amendment's been carried. So we go back, the amendment becomes a motion, so I'll just put it once again. All those in favour of that being the motion, that council does not waive the sewer contribution charges, council defers payment of the sewer contribution charges prior to the issuing of the occupational certificate, and 3, council undertakes a comprehensive review of the sewer contributions policy to ensure it remains fair, appropriate and reflects local conditions. So all those in favour, councillors? Thank you. All those against? Yep, thank you very much. Very good. It's a good discussion. All right, let's move on. We move on to 13, delegates report. With nil delegates report, we move on to 14. Sorry. What? Yep, minutes of the committee meetings. We have minutes of the Australia Day Executive Committee meeting held on the 17th of February 2026. Recommendation there, councillors, that we adopt those minutes. All move in a seconder. Moved by Councillor Rolls, seconded by Councillor Gorman. Any questions or comments on those minutes? No. I think it was a pretty terrific day, and I think the committee did a great job, and the staff did a great job. I think I've already said that, but they did a really good job of it. So, all those in favour of that recommendation, council, we note those minutes. Thank you, councillors. All those against? No. Next, we move on to the council committee reports, which is the minutes of the Henry Lawson Festival of Arts Committee held on the 11th of February. Recommendation that council adopts the minutes of the Festival Arts Committee meeting, which was held on the 11th of February. Move in a seconder. Moved by Councillor Macon, seconded by Councillor Neal. Thank you. No questions on this, councillors? Any good? No. Yep, I'll put that one, that we adopt those minutes as written. All those in favour, councillors? All those against? Thank you very much. Next we move in is, that's it. No closed council this month. No more? No return. No return. No. Righto, councillors. It looks like we've had a pretty good meeting tonight. We're finished up at 7 o'clock, which is not too bad. So thank you very much for everyone attending. Thank you all the staff. We'll have a move in a second that we close the meeting. Moved by Councillor Rolls, seconded by Councillor Neal. Thank you. All those in favour of the meeting closed? No. All those against? Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff. Very good.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.